Hi, welcome to Barb's Book Spot.
Hi, welcome to Barb's Book Spot. Today I have just two books to share with you. They were both published in 2017, and they both have a historical perspective. They're informational, but they're very read-aloudable. I think they're really good stories. I think we have to remember that we are so much a part of our history, our culture, where our country's been, where our family's been. It builds our identity for who we are. And then on the other side of that, we want to look back in time at things that have happened, decisions that were made, people that we hear about, and consider them of their time. So we're looking back through a lens, of what we know and are familiar with, and judging the past. That's one way to look at it. But I think we also have to help students to look at things in the context of when they happened and what was happening around the person when they did what they did. So I have one book about an event and one book about a person that I think you'll really enjoy. The first one is called The Secret Project. It's by Jonah Winter, and Jeanette Winter did the illustrations.
It was published by Beach Lane Books.
And this has to do with the whole project of the Gadget Project, the whole creation of the atomic bomb in Los Alamos. So we start out learning that in the beginning there was a peaceful landscape. We have this beautiful sort of rural desert landscape, and it says that there was very little there except a boys' school. And if you do a little research, you find out it was a sort of an elite boys' school. And then they decided to close the school because something was happening, something very secret, something that nobody knew about. And we get the sense that things are building and happening. It made me wonder, what did the people who lived there think? It looks like a desert, but were there indigenous people? Were there native peoples? Were there farmers or rural ranchers out there wondering what was going on? So it would start, for me, an inquiry process, and that might be something you'd want to do with your students. So we get the idea that buildings are built and a compound is built and people are closeted away. Notice the change in tone. Before we had this beautiful sort of pastel desert landscape. Now we have dark silhouettes and shadows, very clandestine looking things going on. And I just want to read you a little bit. Listen to the words. Outside the laboratory, nobody knows they're there. Outside, there are just peaceful desert mountains and mesas, cacti, coyotes, prairie dogs. Outside the laboratory, in the faraway nearby, artists are painting beautiful paintings. Outside the laboratory, in the faraway nearby, Hopi Indians are carving beautiful dolls out of wood, as they have done for centuries. And then we see the closeted, dark inside. So this juxtaposition of outside, inside, the far away, the nearby. Now, in hindsight, we know that atomic bombs and radiation cannot be contained. There is no far away nearby. Eventually, nearby becomes your nearby, even if it is far away when it starts, because radiation spreads. So we can look at containment in that whole sense of time and place in hindsight. But back then, when it was first getting started, they had no idea of the implications, and that would be a topic for discussion. Whenever I see a native person or a person from another culture or an indigenous person, I always want to say, is this an accurate portrayal? Is this the right tribe, the right dress, the right culture? What else was going on? Was this really going on? And so those kind of questions can be asked. Research can be done to make sure that this is truly a person who was making Kachina dolls. Did you know that that's what they were called? Let's find out more about that. Lots of opportunity for inquiry. So as we go on, this juxtaposition of the light and the dark, the secret and the outside world, the rest of the world, goes on until we get to the point, and this is more than 2/3 of the way through the book, where we set of those boxes, those very contained spaces, we see a full page, sort of a spread. And we see for the next couple of pages, they're moving the gadget out. They're moving this secret project out into the world from behind closed doors. And that goes on for a couple of pages, and then the countdown begins. Now, from this point on in the book, it's wordless. There are just photos, pictures. You see the inside scientists in their bunker looking out, and the countdown begins. And I'm not going to go through all the wordless pages, but I do want to show you one, because I think it really sums up what we're talking about here. We see those same scientists behind a safe bunker wall and window, and then the bomb goes off. We see 2 or 3 more pages of that, and then it goes to complete black. And there are no more words said. Nothing more is said. I think this book has tons of opportunity for inquiry and for research, for ideas about what did they think about the bomb at the time it was built, how important was it, what do we think now in hindsight, and very much present in our world today is the nuclear threat and nuclear power and all kinds of things that affect our lives. We end with an author's note, and we end with resources for peacemakers and for more information about the whole project. So I just love this book. My second book today is called Trudy's Big Swim, How Gertrude Ederle Swam the English Channel and Took the World by Storm. And it's written by Sue Macy. It's illustrated by Matt Collins, and this was published by Holiday House. Gertrude Ederle was, she won like 19 Olympic medals. She was a great swimmer, and in 1924 Olympics, she was a bronze and gold medal winner. And then in 1926, she decided she wanted to swim the English Channel. Now, no woman had ever done that before, but she was determined, and so she's a real role model, I think, for young girls. I want to show you the end papers. There's like a timeline of historic athletic events and sports events, runs along the bottom, and it continues on the back end paper. So we can see what other records were being set, what other events were happening in the world of sports. And then we see Gertrude swimming. Now, swimming the English Channel was a huge feat because it was long miles to go, and it was dangerous. There were sharks, there were jellyfish, there was hypothermia. And nobody really thought she could do it. You weren't allowed to touch the boat. The boat could follow you, but they had to reach out and give you food and drink by a long net. You weren't allowed to touch any other person or any other boat, so they would have these unique ways of trying to keep you sustained while you were doing your efforts. I love the angles of this book, and I want to show you, there's one here where the water's just splashing up. I think it's a gorgeous picture of her. Oh, where is it? Here it is. You see the water splashing up around, and you see flotsam and jellyfish and things in the water, and the sharp angles at the boat. So you feel like you're almost in the water with her. So she perseveres. She actually does this. And in the end, she has to go 5 miles out of her way because of the way the currents are going. She's sort of off course. She ends up going farther than she originally thought. They meet her on shore with lights and flares and colors to try to make sure she gets to shore safely. And once she's back on shore, it's like, oh my God, I've been all alone for like 19 hours, and I really don't know if I want to be surrounded by people. So we get this overwhelming sense of, after the quiet and the being all alone, of being mobbed by the press and all the people who were cheering her on. So Gertrude finally settles back in her hotel. I love this picture here. She's settled with several sandwiches and, kind of reveling and being proud of herself. She did this great thing. And then in the end, we have an author's note with more information about her, about the event, and about the times. Now, this is set in the 1920s, the Roaring '20s, and I'm thinking to myself, my gosh, women in many countries didn't have the vote. In the 20s, that was the flapper era, the jazz age, the Great Migration had begun, and we saw a lot of people coming from the rural South up into the big cities. So lots of change, lots of upheaval. Prohibition was in place, so you couldn't just go out and have a beer or a drink of wine in a restaurant. Great sources of inquiry to look at the times that produced this person and to look at ourselves in comparison to this great historical person. So, as always, make history personal and happy reading.